Guys, so to start off this Queen of Hearts look, I have blocked out my brows, and if you want to see how I do that, I will have the video linked up in the corner as well as down in the description. And for my base, I'm using Nye's Clown White, which is a white cream makeup, and it's really thick and kind of hard to work with, so I like to take it on the back of my hand first and kind of warm it up a little bit so it is a little easier to work with. And I'm just blending that all over using a damp beauty blender. For now, I'm just applying it in a really rough heart shape, and we'll go in later to clean up and define. And I'm starting out with a really light layer and then just continuing to build up the color until I'm happy with the coverage. As always, you can use a white water-activated body paint for this instead of the cream if that's what you prefer. For the smaller areas of the face, around the eyes and the nose, I'm using the pointed end of the Beauty Blender to really get in all those little crevices. And then before we set that, I'm going in with an eyeshadow base and a white eyeshadow to help prevent creasing around the eyes. I did the same thing for the Mad Hatter as well, because I find that if I do the white cream makeup, even if I powder it, it still creases. So I like to do the eyeshadow primer and the eyeshadow because I know that's not going to crease on me. Then one more thing before we go in and set the white, I'm taking my foundation. In this case, it's the Makeup Forever Ultra HD foundation, which is a liquid, which isn't quite ideal for this, but it's the foundation that I wanted to use. So you could go in with a cream concealer or cream foundation for this as well, and that may work better. But I'm just taking this and defining the heart shape around the face. And as you can see, it's kind of cutting up along my cheekbones, which is exactly where I want it to hit. You may have to play around with the shape quite a bit before you get something that you think looks nice with your face shape, so don't worry if you don't get it perfect on the first try. And then to sharpen up those edges even more, I'm going back in with my white cream makeup on that same kind of flat, sharp concealer brush. And I'm just applying that along the edges and then lightly dragging it in to start blending it in, and then using the Beauty Blender to really blend that out into the rest of the white. I mainly want to focus these really sharp edges toward the top of the heart and the bottom down around the chin, because since we will be doing contouring on the cheeks, we don't really need to worry about making those super sharp right now because they're gonna get blended out a bit anyway. And then the edges going down toward that bottom point, I'm trying to make them look as straight as possible. Again, you'll have to work with it a little bit to get it to look right with the curves of your face. So now we finally get to go in with our powder to set everything, and I'm wearing a towel over top of my shirt, kind of like a bib, so that I don't get white powder all over my black top. So I'm just powdering the heck out of all the white cream makeup. I'm going in with a smaller brush to get the smaller areas, and then once I have everything nice and set, I'm just going in and taking a clean brush to swipe away all the excess powder. Moving on to the eyes, I'm starting out with a NYX Teal Gel Liner and using this kind of as another base so that my blue eyeshadow will be super pigmented and kind of have a teal hue to it. And I wasn't quite sure what shape I wanted to go for with this, so I just started applying it to the lid and then blended it up toward the crease. And on the inside, I took it into a rounded shape, kind of into the top of the nose contour. And then I kept that inside edge nice and sharp and then blended out the outside edges. And then I just continued to build up that inner shape, taking it up toward where my natural brows would sit and making it a bit more circular. Again, keeping that inner edge really sharp and making sure the outside edges were nice and blended out. I then decided to blend it down at the inner corner onto the lower lash line, just a hair. And then I'm also making sure that I have a nice even layer of this teal before I go in with the blue shadow. And for that blue shadow, I'm using NYX's Hot Single in the shade Turnt Up, and I am pretty much just applying that over top of where we applied the Teal gel liner. Some of you guys were asking how I managed to not get any fallout for my Mad Hatter look with all those colorful shadows, and really you just want to make sure that you tap out all your excess eyeshadow from your brush and then really press and pack it in so that none of the shadow can escape. If you still have extra shadow on your brush and you go in and just swipe it, it's more likely that the shadows will fall down onto your base. So now I've just tight lined my eyes using a black liner, and I'm also applying this to the top lash line and just kind of smudging it with my finger just to really help black out that lash line. And then I'm also lining my lower waterline with the black liner, again smudging it out just a little bit with my fingers to help give it a little bit of a softer edge. Next up, we are creating a really dramatic wing, and it was not a good eyeliner day for me. So I went through 3 products because I couldn't seem to get anything right. So I started out with the Makeup Forever graphic liner to define the wings, then started filling them in with the NYX Curve Liner, and in the end I settled with the black matte liquid liner from NYX. And in the end, one was still a little bit thicker than the other, but we're just gonna go with it. So if you need to clean it up at all, just be really careful and go in with any of your leftover white cream makeup. Don't press too hard or you could mess up your white base. Once you've made it through the liner phase, go ahead and apply some black mascara to your top and bottom lashes, and then we're moving on to contouring. And I'm using my usual, which is the NYX HD Blush in the shade Taupe, and I'm used to using this to contour my cheeks, and I am kind of blending it up onto the temples just a little bit as well. Then moving into a smaller brush, in this case I'm using a pencil brush, applying the same product down the sides of the bridge of the nose, and then using my white eyeshadow to soften that up a little bit. And then to highlight, which is a really subtle highlight, you can hardly tell that it's there on camera, but I'm using Ice Dancer from the Sugarpill Edward Scissorhands palette and just applying that to all your normal highlighting places as well as to the tops of the heart. Then I also decided to go in with a blush. This one is one of the Becca Luminous blushes. I think it's in this shade Snapdragon, I'm pretty sure. If not, all the products will be down in the description. But I'm just applying that kind of in between the contour and the highlight and blending that in onto the apples of the cheeks a little bit, just for kind of a subtle rosy sheen. We're then creating a beauty mark using the same matte liquid liner, and we are also going to apply some lashes. Then for the lips, I'm using 2 Jeffree Star liquid lipsticks, the first one in the shade Redrum, and I'm applying this all over as a base, and I'm making sure to really define and kind of overdraw just slightly on my Cupid's bow so that it's a little more heart-shaped. Then again, if you need to clean up at all, just be super careful with your white cream makeup. I'm then taking the shade Nicole to the center of the lips to create a really subtle yet pretty ombre effect, and I'm just pressing my lips together as well as using my finger to blend that out into Redrum, and then we're finishing up with some setting spray. And I just have to take a quick second to show off my backdrop because it took quite some time, about 4 straight days of painting. All the roses are hand painted, and it's just a white paper backdrop painted with all acrylic paints. So I hope that you guys like it. I will definitely have to use it again. And then for my costume, I made these puff sleeves out of a really pretty black velvet fabric from Joann's. The wig is another that I've ordered from Amazon, and I will have this one linked down below if any of you guys are interested. And then I also made the crown, which is wire, cardstock, rhinestones, and some E6000 glue. And I've made an X in the center of the crown and bobby pinned it so it'll stay on the wig. And then I kept looking at this and I wasn't quite happy with it. So I did decide to do some super quick thin brows using my Anastasia Dipbrow. This one's in the shade Ebony. You could also use a black body paint or black eyeliner, but I'm just applying these in a really thin line, but still giving them a kind of natural arched shape. Again, using that white cream makeup to clean up the lines. And I was definitely more happy with this look with the brows. And then we have the card collar, which I also made myself, and I had this elastic around it to help it keep its curved shape. And then I've got some Velcro pieces applied to the back that I also have on my shirt that we'll use to attach it. And I just used a gift box because I was just using what I had at home. If you want to see a similar collar, Jordan Hans did one and she does show you how she made hers, so you can definitely check hers out. And then I decided to take my cards from King to Ace, kind of alternating colors, but you could do whatever you want for that. And I was really bummed because it was working out earlier, but the collar just kept falling down because it was too top heavy. But looking at it now, I really like this look of the shorter collar. And then I have these really cool lenses from Samhain, and they are a complete white overlay, so you really can't see anything. They're more for show, but they do look amazing. Again, all of their information will be down in the description box. I hope that you guys enjoyed this look and that you've been enjoying the Wonderland series. I do have a few left, so stay tuned and I will see you next time.